701, Return, 4 stripes. Verse 16. Statius, in the Thebaid, mentions the strictness of the discipline of Chiron. See the Immerse, IL 13. 1, 18. (702) Return, be ye afar. Verse 31. He quotes this and the following line in the Tristia, Book 2. 1, 248, to show that it was not his intention, by his precepts, to inculcate breaches of chastity among the Roman matrons. See the note to the passage, and to the Fasti, Book 2. 1, 30. The vita, or fillet, was worn solely by women of pure character. (703) Return, the Tawny Indians. Verse 53. Herodotus considers the Ethiopians to be Indians. According to some, the father of Andromeda was king of Ethiopia, but she is more frequently represented as a native of Joppa, on the coast of Syria. (704) Return, as many stars as. Verse 59. Heinsius considers this and the next line to be spurious. (705) Return, wish a riper fair. Verse 63. Juvenes, applied to a female, would mean something more than a mere girl. Juventus was that age in which a person was in his best years, from about 20 to 40. (706) Return, Pompey's portico. Verse 67. He alludes to the portico which had been erected by Pompey at Rome, and was shaded by plane trees and refreshed by fountains. The porticos were walks covered with roofs, supported by columns. They were sometimes attached to other buildings, and sometimes were independent of any other edifice. They were much resorted to by those who wished to take exercise without exposure to the heat of the sun. The porticos of the temples were originally intended for the resort of persons who took part in the rites performed there. Lawsuits were sometimes conducted in the porticos of Rome, and goods were sold there. (707) Return, the Lion of Hercules. IL. Verse 68. The Nenean lion, which formed the constellation Leo in the zodiac. (708) Return, where the mother. Verse 69. He alludes to the theatre and portico which Augustus built, the former of which received the name of his nephew Marcellus, the latter of his sister Octavia, the mother of Marcellus. After the death of Marcellus, Octavia added a public library to this portico at her own expense. Here there were valuable paintings of Minerva, Philip and Alexander, and Hercules on Mount Ida. Some suppose that the Temple of Concord, built by Livia, and mentioned in the Fasti, is here referred to. (709) Return, the portico of Livia. Verse 72. The portico of Livia was near the street called Subura. This portico is also mentioned in the Fasti. We learn from Strabo that it was near the Via Sacra, or Sacred Street. (710) Return, granddaughters of Belus. Verse 73. This was the portico of the Danaides, in the temple of Apollo. It is referred to in the second elegy of the second book of the Immerse. (711) Return, bewailed by Venus. Verse 75. He alludes to the temple of Venus, at Rome, which, according to Juvenal, was notorious as the scene of intrigues and disgraceful irregularities. It was a custom of the Romans, borrowed from the Assyrians, to lament Adonis in the temple of Venus. See the 10th book of the Metamorphoses. This worship of the Assyrians is mentioned by the prophet Ezekiel, chapter 8. Vor 13. Women weeping for Thadmas. 712. Return, the Jew of Syria. Verse 76. He alludes to the rites performed in the synagogues of the Jews of Rome, on the Sabbath, to which numbers of females were attracted, probably by the music. There were great numbers of Jews at Rome in the reign of Augustus, who were allowed to follow their own worship, according to the law of Moses. The Roman females visiting the synagogues, assignations, and gross irregularities became the consequence. Tiberius withdrew this privilege from the Jews, and ordered the priests' vestments and ornaments to be burnt. This line is thus rendered in Dryden's version. Nor shun the Jewish walk, where the foul drove. On Sabbaths rest from everything but love. This wretched paraphrase is excused by the following very illiberal note. If this version seems to bear a little hard on the ancient Jews, it does not at all wrong the modern. 713. Return, many a woman. Verse 78. Io, or Isis, was debauched by Jupiter. Martial and Juvenal speak of the irregularities practiced on these occasions. 714. Return, where the erection. Verse 81. He refers to the Forum of Caesar and the Temple of Venus, which was built by Julius Caesar after the Battle of Pharsalia. 715. Return, of Appius. Verse 82. He alludes to the aqueduct which had been constructed by the censor Appius. This passed into the city, through the Latin Gate, and discharged itself near the spot where the Temple of Venus was built. 716. Return, shooting stream. Verse 82. He alludes to the violence with which the water was discharged by the pipes of the aqueduct into the reservoir. 717. Return, which is adjoining. Verse 87. The Temple of Venus was near the Forum. 718. Return, ravished Sabine fair. Verse 102. See the Fasti, Book 3. 199. 719. Return, neither did curtains. Verse 103. The vela, here referred to, may mean either the siparia, or curtains of the theaters, or the awnings which were hung over them. See the note on the siparia of the theaters, referred to in the third book of the Metamorphoses, L. 111. The velaria, or awnings, were stretched over the whole space of the theaters, to protect the spectators from the sun and rain. 720. Return, marble theater. Verse 103. The theaters of Pompey and Scaurus were of marble. 721. Return, nor was the stage. Verse 104. The pulpita was that part of the stage where the actors stood who spoke. It was elevated above the orchestra, where the chorus, and dancers and musicians were placed. 722. Return, upon the maidens. Verse 116. Some writers say that only 30 women were carried off. Valerius Antius made the number 427, and Plutarch mentions a statement that it was 600. 723. Return, the partition. Verse 141. See the Immerse, Book 3. L2. 1:19. 724. Return, let the usual subjects. Verse 144. Publica verba means the compliments of the day, and the topics suited to the occasion. (725) Return, Statues of Ivory. Ver 149. For an account of this procession, see the Immerse, Book 3. L2. 143. (726) Return, Your Fingers. Ver 150. C1, 42, of the same elegy. (727) Return, Dirty Ground. Ver 154. C1, 26, of the same elegy. (728) Return, Knee Against It. Ver 158. C1, 24, of the same elegy. (729) Return, With His Ready Hand. Ver 160. As the seats of the circus were hard, the women often made use of a cushion to sit upon. Those who were not so fortunate as to get a front seat, and so rest their feet in the railings opposite, see the second elegy of the third book of the Immerse, 164, and the note, used a footstool, scamnum, which is mentioned here in the 162nd line, on which they rested their feet. (730) Return, Its Sad Duties. Ver 164. Juvenal tells us that gladiatorial spectacles were sometimes exhibited in the Forum. (731) Return, Himself Receives a Wound. Ver 166. The word habit, here used, is borrowed from the usage at the gladiatorial games. When a gladiator was wounded, the people called aloud habit, or hoc habit, and the one who was vanquished lowered his arms, in token of submission. If the people chose that he should be saved, they pressed down their thumbs, but they turned them up, if they desired that he should be killed. (732) Return, Asking for the Racing List. Ver 167. The libellus, here mentioned, was the list of the horses, with their names and colors, and those of the drivers. It served the same purpose as the race cards on our courses. (733) Return, Having Deposited the Stake. Ver 168. When a bet was made, the parties betting gave to each other a pledge, pignus, in the shape of some trinket, such as a ring. When the bet was completed, they touched hands. (734) Return, When of Late. Ver 171. He speaks of an omachia, or mimic sea fight, which had been lately exhibited at Rome by Augustus, in commemoration of the Battle of Actium. As Antony had collected his forces from the east and all parts of Greece, his ships are alluded to as the Persian and Cecropian, or Athenian ships. The term, nomachia, was applied both to the representation of a sea fight, and to the place where it was given. They were sometimes exhibited in the circus or amphitheater, the water being introduced underground, but more generally in spots constructed for the purpose. The first was shown by Julius Caesar, who caused a lake to be dug for the purpose in a part of the Campus Martius, which Suetonius calls the Lesser Codida. This was filled up by Augustus, who dug a lake near the Tiber for the same purpose, to which, probably, reference is here made. (735) Return, Introduced. Ver 172. Induxit. By the use of this word, it would seem that Augustus Caesar introduced the ships, probably, from the river Tiber into the lake. (736) Return, c. Caesar Prepares. Ver 177. Augustus sent his grandson, Caius, the son of his daughter Julia and Agrippa, to head an expedition against Phraates, the king of the Parthians, the conquerors of Crassus. From this expedition he did not live to return, but perished in battle. Return, Crassi, rejoiced at, ver 180. See the Fasti, Book V1, 583-8, with the note. Also Book 6. 1, 465. Return, of the gods, ver 183. In a spirit of adulation, he deifies Caius Caesar, and his brother Lucius. Return, first of the youths, ver 194. The Princeps Juvenum had the honor of writing first, in the review of the equestrian ranks by the emperor. See the Tristia, Book 2. 190. Caius did not live to fulfill this prophecy, as he was slain through the perfidy of the Parthian general. Return, since thou hast brothers, ver 195. He alludes, probably, to Lucius Caesar, the other grandson of Augustus, and Marcus Agrippa, the husband of Julia, the daughter of Augustus. Return, hast a sire, ver 196. He had been adopted by Augustus. What rivers are born, ver 220. See the 20th line of the second elegy, Book 4. Of the Tristia. Perfectly well, ver 222. See a similar passage in the Tristia, Book 4. El 2. 124. Return, the Euphrates, ver 223. The rivers were generally personified by the ancients as being crowned with reeds. Return, the one whose, ver 224. The young man is supposed to be addressing the damsel in these words. Return, from Danae, ver 225. He means that Persia was so called from Perses, the son of Andromeda, by Perseus, the son of Danae. It is more generally thought to have been so called from a word signifying a horse. Achaemenes was one of the ancient kings of Persia. Return, still it is fataled, ver 236. Solet, is wont, is certainly a pre-narrative reading here to Noset. Return, deceiving lamp. Ver 245. This is as much as to remind him of the adage that women in linen look best by candlelight. Return, why mention Baiae, ver 255. Baiae was a town on the seashore, near Naples, famous for its hot baths. It was delightfully situate, and here Pompey, Caesar, and many of the wealthy Romans had country seats. Seneca and Propertius refer to it as famous for its debaucheries, and it was much frequented by persons of loose character. It was the custom at Baiae, in the summertime, for both sexes to cruise about the shore in boats of various colors, both in the daytime and at night, with sumptuous feasts and bands of music on board. Return, hostile hand. Ver 260. See the Fasti, Book 3. 263. He means that the Arician grove was much resorted to by those engaged in courtship tad intrigues. 749, return, borne upon unequal wheels to, ver 264. He alludes to Talia, the muse who inspires him, preferring the unequal or hexameter and pentameter measure of elegiac verse. 750, return, by the lark. Ver 286. See the Metamorphoses, Book X. 751, return, of Sidon. Ver 293. This was a city of Crete. 752, return, untruthful as it is to, ver 298. The Cretans were universally noted in ancient times for their disregard for truth. St. Paul, in his epistle to Titus, ver 12, says, quoting from the Cretan poet Epimenides, one of themselves, even a prophet of their own, said, "The Cretans are always liars, evil beasts, slow bellies." This witness is true. 753, return, by a bull, ver 302. See this story explained in the translation of the Metamorphoses, page 70. 754, return, the sire. Ver 326. This was the Minotaur. See the Metamorphoses, Book 8. 755, return, if the Cretan damed, ver 327. This was Arope, the wife of Atrus, who slew the children of his brother Thyestes, and set them on table before their father. 756, return, who spoiled, ver 331. He falls into his usual mistake of confounding Scylla, the daughter of Nisus, with the daughter of Phorcys. 757, return, the flames. Ver 335. See the Metamorphoses, Book 7. 1, 391, and the Epistle of Medea to Jason. 758, return, the son of Amintor. Ver 337. Phoenix, the son of Amintor, according to Homer, became blind in his latter years. See the note to the 307th line of the 8th book of the Metamorphoses. 759, return, of thy guiltless sons. Ver 339. Phineas was a king of Arcadia, or, according to some, of Thrace or Paphlagonia. His wife, Cleopatra, being dead or divorced, he married a Scythian named Harpalus, at whose suggestion he put out the eyes of his sons by Cleopatra. He was persecuted by the Harpies, as a punishment. 760, return, what is one's own. Ver 348. Suis seems preferable here to Suaz. 761, return, the crop. Ver 349. These lines are referred to by Juvenal in the 14th Satire, 1.143. 762, return, your access easy, ver 352. C is addressed to Nape, in the Immerse, Book I, L2. Cypassus seems to have been a choice specimen of this class. See the Immerse, Book 2. L8. 763, return, pay him in return. Ver 370. This seems to mean, I do not think you can make sufficient return for his ardent affection, referring to the lover. Some of the commentators think that it signifies a hint from the servant, that as her mistress's husband has offended her by his infidelities, she ought to repay him in his own coin. $764, return, is of use to, for 375. This abominable notion seems to have been acted upon by the poet himself. See the Immerse, Book 2. L8. $765, return, her birthday at, ver 405. See the Immerse, Book I, L8. 194. $766, return, whether the calends, ver 405. The matronalia were celebrated on the first day of the calends of March. It was usual on that day for husbands to make presents to their wives, and lovers to the objects of their affection. The calends of March preceded April, which month was sacred to Venus. See the Fasti, Book 3. 170. $767, return, the wealth of kings. Ver 408. It was the custom to bring the spoils of the enemy, or the most curious portions of it, to Rome, or it was exposed to view in the circus and the theaters. Ovid tells his readers that they must not think that the ladies can give them any of their leisure on such occasions, as, being so much engaged with the sights, they will have no time for love-making. $768, return, Pleiades prevailed at, ver 409. This is said figuratively. $769, return, Tirphalia. Ver 413. The 16th of July, the day on which the Romans were defeated by the Gauls at the Allia, was deemed unlucky, and no business was transacted on it. $770, return, a day not suited for. Ver 415. The Jews are here alluded to, and he refers to their Sabbath. How some commentators can have dreamed that the feast of the Saturnalia is referred to, it is hard to say. $771, return, great must be. Ver 417. The meaning is, be careful not to make your first advances on the birthday of your mistress, as that is the time for making presents, and you will certainly be out of pocket. See the Immerse, Book I, L8. 194, and the note. $772, return, the loosely clad peddler. Ver 421. Institer was properly a person who sold wares, and kept it taberna or shop on account of another. Sometimes free persons, but more frequently slaves, were instators. $773, return, a promissory note. Ver 428. Syngrapha or syngrapha was a bill bond, or promissory note, which was most probably the kind of writing that the peddler would here require. It may possibly mean a check upon his bankers, the Argentarii of Rome. $774, return, not to have learned. Ver 428. The reading here seems to be non didasis juvat. For it is not to your advantage that you have learned to write. The other reading, in didasis juvat, may be rendered, perhaps, it may be no advantage that you have learned to write, but. $775, return, birthday cake. Ver 429. See the Immerse, Book I, L8. 194. $776, return, the jewel. Ver 432. For an account of the earrings of the ancients, see the notes to the Metamorphoses, Book X, 1. 116. (777) Return, should you give her that, ver 447. The meaning of this and the following line is very obscure, so much so that Berman is in doubt on the subject. It, however, seems to be, that it is not discreet, on first acquaintance, to give presents, as the damsel may then have a reason for peremptorily giving you up. She carries off your gift, and gives no favor in return. (778) Return, upon an apple that, ver 457, see the 20th and 21st epistles in the present volume. (779) Return, extend their hands, ver 462. This figure is taken from the gladiatorial games, where the conquered extended their hands in token of submission. (780) Return, ring of iron, ver 473. The rings worn by the lower classes were of iron. (781) Return, under some of the columns. Point 1, ver 490. The learned Heinsius absolutely thinks that columnas here means milestones. It is pretty clear that Ovid alludes to the columns of the portico, and he seems to say that the attentive lover, when he sees the damsel at some distance before him, is not to hesitate to escape the crowd by going into the open space outside of the columns, and then running on, for the purpose of overtaking her. See the Tristia, Book 3. L3, where he makes mention of the columns in the portico of the Danaides. (782) Return, actor is dancing, ver 501. See the Tristia, Book 2. I 497. (783) Return, with the irons. Ver 505. See the Immerse, Book I L 14:125, and the note. The effeminate among the Romans were very fond of having their hair in curls. (784) Return, with the rough pumice, ver 506. Pliny the Elder mentions pumice stone as a substance used by women in washing their bodies, and now by men as well. Persius, in his fourth satire, inveighs against this effeminate practice. (785) Return, bid those do this, ver 507 foot. He alludes to the Galli, the eunuch priests of Cybele. (786) Return, Hippolytus. Ver 511. Phaedra, in her epistle, alludes to his neglect of dress, as one of the merits of Hippolytus. (787) Return, Plain of Mars. Ver 513. The Roman youth practiced wrestling and other athletic exercises on the Campus Martius, being often stripped naked, or nearly so. The oil, combined with tea heat, would tend to bronze the skin. (788) Return, not be clammy. Ver 515. Probably this is the meaning of lingua any rigit, although Nissard's French translation has it, let your tongue have no roughness. Dryden's translation is, of course, of no assistance, as it carefully avoids all the difficult passages. (789) Return, the father of the flock. Ver 522. He alludes to the rank smell to the armpits, which the Romans called by the name hircus, a goat, from a supposed similarity to the strong smell of that animal. (790) Return, awaking from her sleep. Ver 529. See the Epistle of Ariadne to Theseus. 791, return, Mimilonian females. Ver 541. It is a matter of doubt why the Bacchanalian women were called Mimalonides. According to some, they are so called from Mimas, a mountain of Asia Minor, where the rites of Bacchus were celebrated. Suedas says that they are so called, from imitation, because they imitated the actions of men. Bochet thinks that the word is of Hebrew origin, and that they received their name from Mamelarin, garrulous or noisy, or else from Mamel, a winepress. (792) Return, drunken old man, ver 543. See the adventure of Silenus, in the beginning of Book 11. Of the Metamorphoses, and in the Fasti, Book 3. 1. 742. He seems to have been always getting into trouble. (793) Return, Cretan diademed, ver 558. See the Fasti. Book 3. 1. 516. (794) Return, Evi Havo, ver 563. In the combat with the giants, Jupiter is said, when one of them was slain by Bacchus, to have exclaimed, "Well done, son," whence the exclamation Evi was said to have originated. See the Metamorphoses, Book 4. 1, 11 and 15, and the note. (795) Return, on the table. Ver 572. See the Epistle of Paris to Helen, and the Amores, Book I, L4. 1, 20, and Book 2. LV 1, 17, and the notes. (796) Return, from the side. Ver 576. See the Amores, Book I, EL4. 1, 32. (797) Return, touched with her fingers. Ver 577. The ancients are supposed not to have used at meals any implement such as a knife or fork, but merely to have used the fingers only, except in eating soups or other liquids, or jellies, when they employed spoons, which were denoted by the names cochlear and ligula. At meals the Greeks wiped their fingers on pieces of bread, the Romans washed them with water, and dried them on napkins handed round by the slaves. (798) Return, are drinking by lot. Ver 581. The modimperator, or master of the banquet, was often chosen by lot by the guests, and it was his province to prescribe how much each person should drink. Lots were also thrown, by means of the dice, to show in what order each person was to drink. This passage will show the falsity of his plea in the second book of the Tristia, addressed to Augustus, where he says that it was not his intention to address the married women of Rome, but only those who did not wear the viti and the instita, the badges of chastity. (799) Return, agent attends even too much. Ver 587. His meaning seems to be, that in the same way as the agent does more than attend to the injunctions of his principal, and puts himself in a position to profit by his office, so is the innamorato, through the confidence of the husband reposed in him, to make a profit that has never been anticipated. (801) Return, Eurytion. Ver 593. At the nuptials of Pirithous and Hippodamia. See the Metamorphoses, Book 12. 1, 220, or he is called Eurytus. (802) Return, stealing up. Verse 605. This piece of impudence he professes to practice in the Amores, Book I, L4. L. 56. 803, return, bird of Juno. Verse 627. This fact, in natural history, was probably known only to Ovid, or the peacocks of the present day may be less vain than the Roman ones. See the Metamorphoses, Book I1. 723. 804, return, that there should be gods. Verse 637. This was the avowed opinion of some of the philosophers and atheists of antiquity. We learn from Tertullian that Diogenes, being asked if the gods exist, answered that he did not know anything about it, but that they ought to exist. The doctrine of the Epicureans was that the gods lived a happy and easy life, were not susceptible of anger, and did not trouble themselves about men. 805, return, went to Busiris. Verse 649. See the Tristia, Book 3. L11. 139, where the story of Phalaris is also referred to. Thrasius was the brother of Pygmalion, and was justly punished by Busiris for his cruel suggestion. 806, return, Phoebe suffered. Verse 679. See the story of the rape of Phoebe, by Castor and Pollux, in the Fasti, Book V1. 699. 807, return, work baskets. Verse 693. See the note to the 73rd line of the 9th epistle. 808, return, heroines of olden times. Verse 713. Such as Danae, Europa Surreal, Alcmena, Io, Callisto, Antiope, Maya, Electra, and others. 809, return, chaplet of Pallas. Verse 727. A crown of olive was presented to the victors in the athletic exercises at the Olympic Games. 810, return, love for Lyris. Verse 731. If Lyris here is a female name, it is not known who she was. 811, return, Daphnis. Verse 732. He was a Sicilian, the son of Mercury, and the inventor of bucolic poetry. 812, return, Pylades. Verse 745, Hermione was the wife of Orestes, the friend of Pylades. 813, return, with a dart. Verse 763. It appears by this, that it was the custom to take fish by striking them with a javelin. Salmon are 4 times caught in a similar manner at the present day.